Are you currently managing a team? Are you the leader or an executive of a company and you're wondering what's next? Do you wonder how you can support your team through this difficult time, through this time of crisis? Those are questions that I'm going to answer in today's YouTube video, so let's jump in. And welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Julia Arndt and I'm a peak performance coach and stress management trainer. And as you can imagine, during this crisis, I am very busy. I'm trying to help a lot of people understand what is going on at the moment from a mental perspective, because a lot of things have changed over the last couple of weeks. In only 30 days, our world has literally turned upside down. And I have been giving a lot of trainings over the last 2 weeks alone. I have trained over 400 people, help to navigate this change. And I have also talked about best practices on working from home. I have done a YouTube video that you should be checking out. I have done 2 YouTube videos. The first one is on how to work from home and tips on how you can do that. And then the second one is 10 tips on how to work from home when your kids are at home. So make sure that you're checking out these videos as well. In today's video, I want to give you a couple of tips if you are a manager, because I am training and I'm talking to a lot of managers, leaders and executives at the moment as well. And they're always asking me, what can I do to support my team? So today, I want to share 3 tips with you on how you can help your team, how you can support your team during COVID-19. So let's jump into the first tip. My first tip is really important, especially during this crisis, because if you are not clear on your priorities, your team is going to have a hard time to understand where they have to go. So tip number 1, set clear priorities. It is really important as the leader, as the manager or the executive, whatever role you are playing in your company, that you are really clear on what is next. Because if you are not clear, your subordinates and the people that are reporting into you won't be clear either. And that is creating a lot of tension, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. And so it is so much more important that you are really clear and that you are communicating with your team on what you think the next priority should be. If you are unclear about your current priorities, if you are unclear on what is next, create a brainstorming session. Be open to your team. Be honest with your team about what you know and what you don't know, and invite them to collaborate. This is a powerful time to create new ideas, to collaborate. Even if we are sitting at home and if we have to do everything virtually, we can organize brainstorming sessions. I have been working with spreadsheets over the last 2 weeks. I have trained 400 people and I have interacted with 400 people because I have used spreadsheets in order to collaborate and in order to see what people are thinking about. And it's been really powerful. People have loved this way of working together and engaging with each other, because everybody is kind of forced to say something. Everybody is kind of forced to collaborate and participate, because if you are sitting in a conference call and you're trying to have everybody say something, that could get really messy and confusing. And then you have one person that is talking all the time and then the other person that never says anything. If you're having a spreadsheet, try it out. It's really cool. Share it with your team, set it up, and then collaborate. Do a brainstorming session and have them help you set the next priorities for the team. It's okay if you don't have all the answers. It is very, very powerful as a leader to assume that and to say, hey, listen, I don't really know what's next. Here are the challenges. Let's solve them together. So set clear priorities. And if you don't have clear priorities, maybe from your leadership team, then have your team help you come up with what you should be focusing on next. When we are doing brainstorming sessions, really powerful ideas will come up and we can see all of the different combinations of ideas that maybe create this powerful one idea that you want to work on next. So tip number 1, set clear priorities. Tip number 2, be a role model. The next thing I want to talk about in tip number 2 is that you need to lead by example. It is really, really important, especially during these times, that you lead by example and that you are very mindful of what you're doing at the moment, because people are looking at you. You are the manager, you are the leader, you are the executive, and people are trying to model you because eventually they want to be you. So how can you show how you are mastering this crisis at the moment? And there's a lot of different parts of how to be a role model, right? It is about how do you manage your time at the moment? How do you set your schedule? How do you create boundaries, right? Where do you say yes to meetings? Where do you say no to meetings? And where do you also communicate that to your team that it is okay that they're doing the same? I think as a leader, it is also really important that you are opening yourself up, that you are honest with your team. We already talked about it in setting those priorities, but it's also important that you're talking about your personal challenges. Maybe you have your family at home. Maybe there's something else that you're challenged by at the moment, and maybe somebody else can help you with some input about how you can create a healthier work-life balance. Maybe you haven't figured it out, and just be honest about it. Because the power of vulnerability, I can tell you, when you are opening yourself up, people will do it too. Because what we are forgetting is that we are all human beings, and now more so than ever we are reminded by that, because we always talk about work-life balance and work-life integration. Now it is really integrated. Now everything at home is taking place at the same time, your home life and your work life. So you have to be really mindful about your challenges and communicate those with your team as well. So when you are a role model, I think it is also really important that you are communicating your daily breaks or what you're doing in order to practice self-care. Why it is so important to practice self-care, especially during these times. So those are all pieces to the puzzle of what can you do as a manager and how can you be a role model. And the final step of all of these things that kind of bring all of these two tips together is to communicate and over-communicate during these certain times. Communicate why you're doing the things that you're doing at the moment. It might be really clear to you in your own head. It might not be very clear to your team and to your reportees. So communicate. Communicate why you're setting up your schedule the way you're setting it up. Communicate why you're taking breaks in a day. Communicate why you're sending maybe an email in the evening, even though I just told you you shouldn't do that, but maybe you're still doing it. Communicate it. It is really, really important that you are the leader and that you are role modeling everything that you would like your team to do as well. This is the power of role modeling. This is the power that you have as a manager and as a leader, because everything that you do will be adapted by the people that serve you. And I'm doing here air quotations because of course they're not really serving you, but they are working for you and they want you to like them and they want you to think that they're doing a good job. So they're going to do everything they can in their power in order to make you think that they are good people. Another thing that is really important to talk about when we're talking about communication is how can you create times for your teams to communicate with each other? Because usually these things happen, of course, a lot more natural throughout the day when we are walking around the office to have chats with our colleagues. Now this is not happening naturally anymore. So you need to be really cognizant of setting this up for your team to still keep that communication and that interaction going. So I would suggest to set up happy hours or to set up times where you're really communicating with your team what they are doing at the moment. The spreadsheet idea that I mentioned to you in tip number 1 can also be really powerful for this particular exercise, for when you want to understand what your team is going through at the moment, what they're challenged by. Sometimes we can do a survey, but it is so much nicer if we can do face-to-face virtual check-in and ask each of your employees, how are they feeling? What are their current biggest challenges? What has changed in their life? What is one thing that they would like to work on over the next week? Where would they need support from others? Because when we are starting to have these open conversations and when you start to also open yourself up to what you are challenged by at the moment. Maybe you're having children at home and it is not so easy to manage all of these different things. People can relate to that. It makes you more human and it will make you more likable, and people will love you for being open and sharing your own vulnerabilities and challenges. and then they will be even more motivated to work for you and deliver great results. A lot of people always forget about that, but it has a lot of power if a person is likable. So communicate with your team, set up specific times to really talk about challenges. I have a beautiful podcast that is called Mindful Leadership, and I had an amazing director from Google. His name is Ryan Owens, in a podcast interview, and he was a director of a team of 50 or 80 people, I don't remember anymore. And he talked about, even before the crisis, like long time before this all even happened, about how he set up monthly check-ins with his team to understand how their work-life balance is going. And this is amazing. So if you want to listen to this, it's a really good inspiration, really good reminder, and a really good role model to see what you can do as a leader as well in order to help support your team through this really difficult time, through this time of crisis, and make sure that you're coming out of this even more powerful, even more connected, and even more successful than you have been before. So I hope that the 3 tips that I shared with you today are really helpful for you. Let me summarize them for you. So tip number 1 is to set really clear priorities. This is really, really important for your team. It's also really important for you, but even more so almost for your team, because they need to know what's going on and they need to know what they should be working on. And if that is not clear, it can lead to a lot of frustration. And it is also really important that you are setting timelines. Don't think like a year ahead now. We have no idea what is going to happen next week. So be also mindful about having kind of smaller sections of goals and create those small buckets to move forward in the projects that you're having with your team in order to keep them motivated as well. Because if we are only working on picture planning all the time, and then these plans are thrown over and over and over again because all these things are changing all the time, that is not really healthy for your team either. Tip number 2 is be a great role model. And finally, tip number 3 is communicate, communicate, communicate. Over communicate. Tell them what you're doing, why you are doing it. Tell them that it is okay to do the same things, to create a really clear schedule, to set boundaries around working hours, to make sure that they are transitioning from work to home, and how you are doing it and how they can do it. And also set up time with your team in order to check in and make sure that everybody is heard, because that is one thing that we always forget, but sometimes we just want to be heard. We don't even want you to find a solution to all of our problems. We just want to be heard. We just want you to acknowledge that it is not an easy time period at the moment and that we are all struggling, and that is okay as well. So this is all from me today. Make sure that if you like this video, that you're giving it a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out all of the other helpful videos that I have for the coronavirus crisis. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below and let me know if you have any questions with regards to how you should be managing your team, how you should practice self-care, how you can transition from work to home. Those are all really powerful topics, and I'm more than helpful to help you with all of these. That's everything from me today. Have a wonderful rest of your day and talk to you soon.